down. We the talk around town. Alex threw the ball to Smokey for a touchdown. Ha. It's fourth down and you don't really want no more. We've been winning from the door. You should check the scoreboard. Ha. Check the scoreboard.
Welcome back to the Scoreboard, Week 8 of the XFL. Got 3 more weeks to go regular season, and it's starting to shape up. The playoff picture is starting to shape up, and both divisions are still kind of close, actually. There's still drama, which we didn't expect. Early on in the season, it looked pretty clear-cut, but now, I guess for the better of the league, we still have some interesting games. So, Smokey, how are you doing?
Oh, man, I am better than DC Defenders fans. And yes, I know they're still in the head. They're still in the lead in this league. They still are the best team, but you have to be worried when you just gave up that many points and eventually lost to the worst team in the league. So there may be something going on with the DC Defenders defense there, but I don't think they need to worry too much, but it is something to look out for.
I've been looking forward to hearing that for a long time. That is the first week in 8 weeks that you're not better than Guardians fans.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they won. They pulled it out somehow.
They did win. They beat the number 1 team.
Uh-huh.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah, as weird as it was.
Before we get into Week 8, how are the standings looking?
Oh, man, bad for you and worse for me for last week. Yeah, we agreed on all except for one game, which happened to be the Battlehawks and Houston Roughnecks. Now, I definitely wasn't feeling well last week, but I still, looking back on this, I don't know why I made that pick. Why? Because I spent the whole show telling you how the Roughnecks are not very good and how they're probably going to lose these upcoming games, and somehow I picked them last week. And I don't know, maybe I was sick. But either way, you got that point. I got one single pick right, and you got 2 because of that, bringing our total to 18 for me and 19 for you.
You know, it's always easy to say this in hindsight, but I really, part of me really wanted to pick Orlando last week, and now, of course, I'm kicking myself that I didn't do it.
Yeah.
And I said it made no sense to do it. Obviously, that's still correct. It made no sense to pick the Guardians. That's why I didn't. But part of me wanted to, and it would have been the best pick of the season. So it sucks that I didn't. But okay, I'm up 1 point now.
Yes.
3 weeks to go for the regular season. You're getting a chance to redeem yourself this week, and I'm gonna give you right away this first game. This is the one where you do it. By the way, this is where you get back your point, because this is your Vipers at my Battlehawks at St. Louis.
Yeah, and I've looked at this game. And I watched the Battlehawks play last week, but also watched the Vipers play, and they were good. They were really good. Jalen McClendon, the old Baylor quarterback, came in there, and he looked really good. It was very, very surprising to me. Rod Smith with that hurdle. Dude, he was on fire. They have a great duo of running backs. It's just that they don't run the ball as much as I think they should, even though Geronimo Allison and Matthew Sexton have been looking really good. Rod Woodson finally got some wins out of this team, but unfortunately it's too late because of the division they're in. They're already eliminated from the playoffs, which is sad to say because they have 2 wins, and here are the Guardians with 1 win, and they are still in contention for the playoffs. But that's just how these things shake out. Now on the other side, AJ McCarron was great. He was still AJ McClutchin, as you say, and he played really well. Brian Hill was fine. Hakeem Butler and Darius Shepard, that duo is amazing. I wish they played for the Vipers. Now, do I want to pick the Vipers on the road and think that there's going to be some kind of momentum? I really don't, because the Battlehawks are just that good. They had those 2 losses to DC, who just lost to the worst team in the league, but that could be a fluke. But no, I don't think they're that bad. I am going to actually pick the Battlehawks at home.
I will say this. First of all, coward. You should have picked. This is how you get back your vote. I'll say this first. I agree, obviously, with you. Battlehawks taking them. They're gonna win at home. Toughest place to play in the XFL, and they're better than the Vipers. One more thing that I'll say is that the MVP race is over. It's done. Okay. AJ McCarron is the MVP of the XFL. If he gets hurt on the first play next week and doesn't play another snap, he's the MVP of the league.
Wow.
17 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He has more touchdowns than any other quarterback. He has fewer interceptions than any other quarterback with double-digit touchdowns. Jordan Ta'amu has 6 passing touchdowns. And yes, he has a 1 game better record. And no, that does not matter. AJ McCarron's the MVP. They're still to play Seattle, which Ben DiNucci is, I suppose, the only other person even in conversation, because you could argue Quentin Dormady is playing at that level, but he's only been doing it for 2 weeks, so that doesn't count. Maybe if he had started from the week 1 for the Guardians, first of all, they might be in the running for the division, and he might be in the running for the MVP. But no, AJ McCarron's got it. He's the MVP. He was meant to be the MVP. It's going right. Okay, this is over. I'm still gonna hold the polls for people to give me their opinions, but to me, this chapter's closed. A lot of things would have to happen for him to give that away. Another great performance against the best defense in the league. Perfect game. 3 touchdowns, 0 picks. Clutch when it mattered. In the red zone. MVP. I'll pick the Battlehawks to win against the Vipers. Even though they've been looking very strong, this is still, the North Division is incredibly tough. And the Battlehawks have to win this game because both the Defenders and the Sea Dragons obviously have winning records, strong winning records, and only two teams can make the playoffs. Now, those two are playing against each other, but that's the last game of today. We'll get to that. First, let's move to the Renegades and the Guardians.
Yeah, this is a tough one here. It's really tough because Orlando finally won, as we said, and they beat the number 1 team in the league. And Arlington, which should by all means be a much better team than the Guardians based on record, they've been on this downhill slide, and they seem to be getting worse in my opinion. Drew Plitt has been put on the IR, and I don't know who they're going with. If it's Kevin Anderson, he might come in. But Luis Perez was signed to the Renegades last week, so there is also a chance that Luis Perez takes over, and if he does, I feel much better about this. Victor Bolden looked great. Blast from the past right there, and Sal Cannella is good as always. Did you see the fight, the Marquette King thing that happened?
No.
Okay, so they got into a fight. Marquette King, after a punt, got into a fight with one of the defenders, and Bob Stoops was yelling at the ref that he got body slammed. He's like, how do you body slam a punter? When you look back at the replay, they were just kind of shoving each other and fell over. It wasn't really a body slam, but Bob Stoops threw a fit over that, and I think he's so upset because his team is falling apart. Now, on the other side, Quentin Dormady, AJ McCarron might be the MVP of this league. Quentin Dormady was the MVP of last week because he was that good. He killed it. Charleston Rambo and Cody Latimer, they're always great, and they're always going to be great even when the quarterback play is not that great. I think right here, I'm just going to go with the momentum lately. I think also being at home, I'm going to take the Guardians.
See, you remember that for weeks and weeks I've told you that the Guardians will eventually win a game. And then you'll come on here and you can't say you're doing better than Guardians fans, which you've been doing for 7 weeks straight. For, I think, 3 weeks now, this was the one that I was eyeing, where I was going to pick the Guardians in this one no matter what. I wasn't going to pick them, or I wasn't going to pick them against DC, obviously. This was always my candidate. If they win one, this is it. And, of course, they've kind of anticlimactically taken that away already by just going and beating the best team in the league, and the Defenders, at home in Orlando. But to me, the way Dormady's played the last 2 weeks, and frankly, they could have won week 6 as well. They played Seattle. It was a one possession game. Also a very strong team, by the way. They could have won that game as well. They were definitely in it. Nothing close to how they got blown out by the Roughnecks, who apparently are not even that good of a team compared to those 3 in the North. This is different. This is a very different roster. I think the Guardians are straight up better than the Renegades this time. And if Quinn normally plays the way he's been playing, the Renegades are on their 3rd quarterback now this season if it's Kevin Anderson. Drew Plitt hurt. Kyle Sloter didn't work out. And the Guardians also on their 3rd quarterback, but it's gotten better and better with everyone. And now they have their guy, and I think they're going to win. They have a reasonable chance to win out because it's the Brahmas next week, and then it's St. Louis last week. They're not out of it. They're not entirely out of it yet. The Brahmas and the Renegades just keep losing. Guardians win all their games. They play Arlington and San Antonio back-to-back weeks. They're getting hot at the exact right time, and the South is bad. So
yeah.
There's a chance. There's a chance. But step by step, you got to take it week by week. This is a must-win game for the Guardians, so I'm going to say they get it done at home.
Wow.
Roughnecks at the Brahmas.
Wow. If the Guardians actually make the playoffs after the turbulence they had at the beginning of the season between Tyrell Buckley saying he didn't want any of these players and changing quarterbacks over and over again, only to go with the guy that they fired for 1 week earlier in the season because they thought he was selling plays. If they do make it, that is a crazy storyline right there. I want to see it. I want to see that now. But as far as the Houston Roughnecks and the San Antonio Brahmas, Cole McDonald is not good. Now, I bet they're wishing they could get some better quarterbacks back on the field here because Cole McDonald is bad. This team's going to continue losing if they don't put something together. Like I said, they are frauds. They were frauds from the beginning. They had those 4 or 5 straight wins. But ever since then, they've been playing really good teams, and they've been showing how bad they are. I do like Max Borghi. That's a great running back. Other than that, they don't have a ton of wide receivers to turn to. Cedric Byrd was good in this game. Who's it going to be next week? Could be Bryson Allen again. Who knows? But on the other side, Kurt Binkert played that game with fractured ribs. Like, that's a tough dude. Like, I give him props for that. They couldn't pull out the win, and it was probably due to him having fractured ribs, but at least he was tough enough to play with their quarterback carousel that they've been on. They need some kind of stability here. Will Likely scoop and score. That was my my hero from the USFL.
That was your favorite?
Yeah, exactly. I like Will Likely. I like anybody named Likely that wears number 4. And it doesn't matter what position you play. If your last name is Likely, you have to wear number 4. You can ask Isaiah Likely over at the Ravens. Landon Akers, John Hillman was good. Hines Ward, I don't know. Maybe he can pull this one out. Maybe he can't. It's tough. You know what? I'm going to go out on a limb. I will take the Brahmas at home because I just don't believe in the Roughnecks, and they burnt me last week when I picked them.
The Roughnecks are on a 3-game losing streak. They started the season 4-0. Haven't been able to win since. That's because they've played the North 3 back-to-back games. Mm-hmm. Now they're back in the Southern Division where they come back as sort of the old schoolyard bullies. I'm gonna go Roughnecks. I think they recover from this. I think they'll be fine, and they better be fine because they are also in danger. Suddenly now, if they lose that game, they're 4-4, and the Renegades might be 4-4, and the Brahmas are gonna be 3-5. So they're just 1 game away from just being out of the playoffs after starting 4-0, and basically we all already okay. The Roughnecks win the South. It's done. It's over. It's Houston versus whoever for the championship. Not so fast anymore. They just got grounded a little bit as well, but I think they get it done here. As much as I want to pick Bankert, of course, obviously big Kurt Bankert fan. Always want to pick for him, but being injured, being hurt, and being in an offense that you just learned the playbook off 2 weeks ago, going against still probably the best defense in the league, even though for 2 weeks straight it hasn't looked like it, or not as convincing as it did before. It's a tough ask, and the Brahmas they're just not really going anywhere. It doesn't seem like they've really improved much throughout the year. Pretty much seems like the same way they were in week 1. So I'll take the Roughnecks. But I like that you picked the Brahmas. That's a good. I think it's a good shot to take, because the Roughnecks certainly are teetering. If you're gonna take a risk, this is definitely the pick to make, I think.
Yeah,
that's definitely a good one.
If the Roughnecks are gonna play Cole McDonald, I think the Brahmas have a shot here.
Certainly, absolutely. But I'm going Houston. I'm trusting that defense to get it back together and at least clinch a very weak division. And finally, we have the Defenders at the Sea Dragons.
Yeah, it's not all doom and gloom for the Defenders. They're still making the playoffs. I don't think there's any way they can be taken out of it at this point. Well, I guess it is
faster than you think.
The Dragons could pop right up there.
They lose this game. St. Louis simultaneously wins against Vegas. We have 3 teams with the same record.
Oh, man. So maybe there is a reason to worry here. But Jordan Ta'amu, Mr. XFL, is great. I love that De'Aaron King only gets in for 1 throw a game, but it is always phenomenal. That dude is so good. And, of course, he's a great runner. I mean, maybe they should just make him a running back and let him come in for gadget plays like that, because that's basically what he's doing here. Lucky Jackson, my favorite wide receiver in this NFL, was great once again. That game was just a shootout. And Abram Smith, still the number 1 running back in the league. It was just a shootout, and they... Man, I did not expect it, but here we are. The Dragons, on the other hand, are on fire. The Dragons have won 5 in a row now. Ben DiNucci is not the greatest, but he is what he is. He throws an interception every game, that's for sure. But he always does enough to get the job done. The team around him is great. I think the team around him is so much better than Ben DiNucci himself. Jahcour Pearson, the number 1 wide receiver in the XFL, and Josh Gordon is back after we were wondering what the hell happened to Josh Gordon. Here he is, 3 for 43 this past week, and the touchdown. He was the only one with a receiving touchdown. Jim Haslett, they picked up Philip Lindsay. I just noticed that on one of the depth charts. I was surprised by that. I don't know if he's going to play, but if he does get in there, that would be cool to see Philip Lindsay doing some work for the Sea Dragons. They need it too. Their running game is horrible. They're not running. Maybe that's why they have Philip Lindsay now. I bet. Dude, that's enough ado. I'm going to take the Sea Dragons at home.
Wow. Man, it kills your stock to lose to the Guardians, huh?
Yeah.
You can go undefeated all year, lose 1 game, and then you already pick against them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not past this. This is on paper, and the sports books agree with you. This is basically a pick'em game. This is very, very close. From what I've seen, Seattle's getting anywhere between 1.5 to 2.5 points at home. So it is a very close game in the books. But for me to pick, man,
it's tough.
It's tough because the Defenders still win by playing offense, right? Mm-hmm. And they play enough offense to win. Obviously, they scored was it a season high? It was season high scoring offense against the Guardians, but you just gave up 1 more point than you scored yourself. So it's a defensive problem. And like you said, the Seattle offense is too one-dimensional, I think, for them to also score like the Guardians did, or for them to be able to stick with the Defenders. We've even seen that with the Battlehawks, sadly enough, that offense was a bit too one-dimensional in those 2 games to keep up with the scoring, and they turned the ball over too many times. So I'll say the Defenders right the ship. And this is the worst possible week for them to come in with a loss that puts uncertainty into the building, because this is against a division rival who is currently knocking on the door trying to dethrone them from the playoff spot. And like I mentioned, Seattle wins this. We assume that St. Louis wins at home against the Vipers. We have 3 teams at 6-2 suddenly in the North. And everything's suddenly possible. There's some interesting tiebreaker rules, which we'll get into if in week 10 is still relevant. But this is not a spot that you want to be in if you're the Defenders. You don't want to go lose back-to-back games and suddenly your playoffs are in danger. Not just the division title, but the playoff spot. So I'll say they get it right. mainly because I don't want the Seattle Sea Dragons to make it in. But on the other hand, I think the Battlehawks' best chance to win the North probably is if the Defenders somehow got eliminated. Because that feels like the worst matchup.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure who I'm supposed to root for. But I'm gonna go DC because it's just like an inherent dislike of Seattle football teams, I guess. I can't bring myself to root for them. I'm taking the Defenders to get it done. So we have, what, 2 disagreements?
Yes, 2 disagreements. The Roughnecks and the Brahmas, the Defenders and the Sea Dragons. Now, I was looking back through here, and yes, that is the highest combined score this season, with second place being the Orlando Guardians versus the Vipers at 35-32 in Week 5. Now, there was the Roughnecks and the Guardians. Wow, the Guardians are in all these games.
That was a blowout, though. That was just that was all Houston.
Yeah, well, it was 44-16, but yeah, I think that's the third highest. But they all, maybe that's also a symptom of the Orlando Guardians' defense being that bad. But then again, looks like the Defenders' defense is bad also. Maybe they can put it back together, but we'll see.
I think they can. I think they have to. They're not going to win by defense. They got to win by offense. You just got to hold. And if you can pick off Benvenucci once or twice, which he's shown a proclivity as good as he's been generally the last 5 weeks, he can throw an interception at a bad time. He's not immune to that at all. And I think you get the ball, like one extra possession into your offense's hands, I think you have a good chance to win if you're the Defenders. That's what against the Guardians just did not happen. Dormady played perfectly. He just didn't give him any big breaks. And the Defenders never had a chance to pull away with that game. And I think that's exactly how you have to play them. It's interesting that the Guardians of all teams would show the blueprint of how the Defenders are actually beatable.
Yeah, it is. That's
last thing I would have ever expected. How does this affect your power rankings for this week?
I have tossed this around. I've really thought about this, and I still, until they prove it's not a fluke, I'm leaving the Guardians at 8. Which is weird to say because the Vipers are actually out of the running for the playoffs. But I think overall they are still a better team than the Brahmas and the Guardians. So I have the Guardians at 8, Brahmas at 7, Vipers at 6, especially with a new quarterback. The next two, I've tossed these up and back and forth, but I just have to go with the best record here. The Arlington Renegades are at 5 and the Houston Roughnecks are at 4. And then you have the 3 from the north. Seattle at 3, St. Louis at 2, and the DC Defenders are still at number 1 unless the Sea Dragons prove that they're not as good as we thought they were.
Okay, I'm gonna go with this also. I have some I agree, some I disagree. To me, this win for Orlando is impressive. Okay, I cannot put them at 8 after this one. To me, the unlucky number 8, actually I have the Brahmas. I mean, you got outclassed by a team that's competing with you for the first overall pick, with the Vipers. Quarterbacks are getting hurt. You brought one in from the street, he's also getting hurt. It's just looking all bad. Brahmas at 8 for me. I have the Guardians at 7, so one spot up. Though if matched head to head with the Vipers, I might trust them to win. They're still one win behind, so Guardians 7, Vipers at 6. Then the Renegades at 5. Roughnecks rounding out at 4, the Southern Division. And then I have the Seattle Sea Dragons at 3. And the same thing that applies to the Guardians applies to the Defenders here. You lost to the only undefeated team. You lost to the worst team in the league. You got not blown out, but you could not stop the offense of the worst team in the league. You can't be number 1. Defenders down to spot number 2 until they prove otherwise, which would be a resounding win at Seattle. If they don't deserve to be number 1, which means, of course, by sheer coincidence and process of elimination, the number 1 team, the St. Louis Battlehawks, it's just the only team that remains, right? It's the only option left.
That's tough, though, after they lost 2 games to the Defenders.
Well, as far as I've seen, the Battlehawks have not lost to an undefeated team.
I mean, that's true, but maybe the Guardians are just much better. And that was the only reason I had to put the Guardians at 8, is because they've already been beaten by the Brahmas and the Vipers. So it's kind of hard to bump them up there. The same reason I can't put St. Louis above the Defenders yet.
See, the way that I look at it is if like I'm taking power rankings to look at the future, right? If we had a matchup this week, Guardians Brahmas, are you picking San Antonio? Because I sure am not.
Yeah, probably
right
not. Now that you mention it, because of that one win though. But like I'm saying, it's hard to tell if that one game was a fluke. I mean, we see this in the NFL all the time, where Houston miraculously gets a win over, Philadelphia or something.
True. It happens.
Yeah.
It happens. The Guardians have been knocking on that door though for three games now with Dormady as a starter, and I think they'll establish them. I think they'll win this week, and then I don't think anyone can put them at 8 anymore. And you don't get to say you're better than Guardians fans for the rest of the year, by the way, because they're gonna keep winning here.
Hey, if they win this week, I'm putting them at number 5. They are jumping all the way up over the Arlington Renegades because they will have beaten the Renegades and they will be on a win streak, and they're putting up a ton of points in these games. So I will bump them up to number 5 next week if they win this one.
They have a chance to end up the best team in the South by week 8 in power rankings alone. Maybe not win the division, but in power rankings alone, they might.
Yeah, possibly. It
is a possibility. Yeah, and they get to play. Well, they get to play the Brahmas and then St. Louis. But revenge game tour in the South for sure now for the Guardians. What are we looking at in the fantasy world here with the XFL?
Oh man, it was a great week. It really was, because there was a ton of points scored, and mostly in one game. Your top scorers of the week all came from that game. Quentin Dormady was the highest scoring quarterback. He put up 48.3. Your second highest was Jordan Teamu, so he's worth a mention, 31.7 points. Not bad. That's really good for this league. Abram Smith, still the top running back, 20.7 points. Lucky Jackson was the top receiver, believe it or not, because he didn't have a monster week, but he was the top receiver, 22 points even. And then your top tight end, as I say every single week it seems, except for one when Sal Cannella took over, this was Cody Lattimore, 22.3 points. He is the Travis Kelce of this league. If you want some value plays coming into next week, it is really tough at quarterback, because it looks like you're going to have to pick one of the highest priced quarterbacks if you want to do anything. The only valued play I could say is if Luis Perez does take over for Arlington. He's probably the cheapest one on this board that will get you any kind of points. I would not take a chance on Cole McDonald. I would go with Luis Perez if he's starting at $8,800, or you can just spend your $12,000 on one of the big names like McCarron or Teamu or Ben DiNucci. The running back is not as good either, or is not good either, I should say. John Lovett comes in at $5,200 if he does take over that backfield again. Now Rod Smith looked really good, and he's coming in at $6,000 or $6,600, yeah. But if John Lovett does go back to getting the entire, well, it wouldn't be the entire, but a bigger portion of the workload, that's going to be a really good running back for that price. And the wide receiver who will give you the most value this week is Arlington's Victor Bolden, because he hasn't done much yet, so he is still priced extremely low, but he had a monster week last week, so he is only $3,000, which is the base salary. That's what they start you off at until you prove that you are going to score points. Now, he has scored points last week, so you get the advantage of having that discount. I would take a chance on Victor Bolden if I were you.
I will not comment on the fantasy thing that I just don't know. But AJ McCarron, always a good idea. Take the Battlehawks, call his law and all that. Just get them. They're always good. I just have a fun fact that I saw that I wanted to end the show with, which is to showcase the absurdity of like how some of these offenses fall into the extremes of their schemes. And the defenders have more rushing yards than the Brahmas and Renegades combined. They have more rushing touchdowns than the Brahmas, Renegades, and Battlehawks combined.
Wow.
For the whole season.
Wow.
They have ran the ball about 100 times more than any other team. And it's phenomenal. It's really incredible.
I was thinking about that the two best teams in this league just happen to be the running teams, because this league is a passing league, unlike the USFL, which seemed to be more focused on running. This league has not been focused on running. Now that brings me to a question. Do you think if we matched up all of these teams in this Super League versus the USFL teams of last season, what would be the dominant league here? Do you think the USFL is that good to beat out the XFL? Or what do you think?
Last week's USFL and this year's XFL?
Yes.
I think this year's XFL actually wins. I think they've been, especially for being a first season, they've played very high quality, like exceptionally high quality. And I think the USFL has to show a clear improvement from last year, sorry.
Yes.
To match and to pull ahead. Because USFL last year, it seemed messier than the XFL this year. Now, what's great about this is actually starting next week, we will have 4 weeks of parallel XFL and USFL. So starting next week, we have 1 month of 2 leagues running at the same time, for which we'll be able to give our predictions. And that means we also get to compare, because they're playing at the same times. They may be playing at the exact same times, competing for TV schedules. And then we're really gonna get to see. Of course, I'm assuming during the playoffs the XFL is gonna be more popular. Anyway, during the regular season, even then, this XFL iteration has been phenomenal. I think the quality of play has been really, really good, really promising. USFL has to put up. They have to really bring quality. I think they can, because they've had the stable roster rotation for a year now. They had a whole draft period and everything. They should be much better. They should be much better organized. We know they're more spread apart, a more diverse audience, and they're playing better stadiums. But the quality of the play of this XFL season, they have to match it. I think the XFL has pulled ahead with this one. What do you think?
Well, it's been an argument online. Some people actually believe that the USFL was better last season, and it may be that they're just going off of ratings, because I think the quality of play in the XFL has been better. They definitely have the names, whereas the USFL did not have these level of names and accomplished players like we have here. I mean, it would be, I think, if the XFL teams would be defense and running the ball versus the higher flying offenses of the XFL, it might be actually great matchups, and it may be closer than we think, but I absolutely would go with the XFL as of right now. Now, the USFL could improve this season because they had an extra season to get into the swing of things. So it may change after this year, but as of right now, yes, I would take the XFL.
I will also take the XFL after this, but honestly, I want both.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to pick between one of them. I want both. And the reason that, of course, if you go just by ratings and you compare them with the USFL, last week there was an XFL. So everyone who wanted to watch football on TV had to watch the USFL. Okay, this week we'll get better comparison, especially the next 4 weeks, because they're going head to head.
And I think
hopefully it makes both leagues better.
As far as ratings go, I think it does hurt the XFL that the last 2 iterations failed. So people are trying not to get as invested into a league that they think might not be here next season. Maybe, yeah. But as far as what I hear from The Rock, that this is absolutely a second season thing, if not many seasons into the future.
Oh, this is coming back. This better be coming back. This is way too good of a product.
Yeah, I believe
it. They knocked it out of the park. XFL's great. This has to for sure come back. I hope both leagues will keep making each other better through competition.
Yes. Can't wait till we get a championship game, a joint championship game.
Oh, between the two? Yeah.
Yes. I want to.
Perfect.
I want to see a Birmingham versus DC or St. Louis or even Seattle. Whoever wins this, I want to see that matchup.
Man, that could put some people in a real pickle. Like, what if both your favorite teams play? What if it's Battlehawks at Stallions? What do I do?
Good question. Because that could happen if they ever do a joint championship there. And hopefully after this season, we will get these players sorted out where they're not playing both leagues also to make that more possible. I guess we have to this season, though. If they're going to be overlapping, we won't see these guys in both leagues unless it's someone that got cut or maybe took off from the team at some point and jumped ship. That's another thing. It's kind of like a war there where players are going to be jumping ship from league to league and looking for the best deal.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever pays more, right? I think we'll see some of the XFL players go to the USFL, but I think it's going to be the ones that are not getting a deal with the XFL for next year or for the longer term. We're not going to see. I don't think we'll see AJ McCarron in the USFL, for example, or Jordan Ta'amu, because the XFL is coming back. Those are stars in the XFL. They'll get the good deals. They'll get the long-term contracts as soon as that becomes a thing in this league. In fact, some of them might try to have a shot at the NFL again.
Yes.
But some will go to the USFL and just get another paycheck. But I think we have mostly distinct rosters now, which is good. That's what you want.
Yeah, we can't lose Jordan Ta'amu from the XFL because he is Mr. XFL.
Well, AJ McCarron's Mr. XFL. Now.
He doesn't have the longevity, so.
I mean, he's thrown more touchdowns in one season than Ta'amu has in 2 seasons of XFL football. And listen, I'm not saying it lightly, right? Ta'amu was used to be a battle hawk. I'm pretty sure he has, yeah. Ta'amu was a battle hawk, right? He was my favorite player in the 2020 XFL. But he just, they found an even better quarterback.
Yeah, but the reason he's Mr. XFL is because he could not succeed in the USFL last year. That was a really bad team. But he comes back here and he is back to the top of the pile there.
Yeah, whereas AJ McCarron could have been a backup in the NFL, but decided not to because he wanted to start.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, yeah, AJ McCarron is probably
the better quarterback.
Yeah.
I like Ta'amu, but listen, man, it's what it is. I really like Brock Purdy, but if I could have Aaron Rodgers for the same money that Brock Purdy costs, man,
Yeah.
It is what it is. But yeah, let us know what you think about these games. And starting next week, we'll have 2 of these. We'll have XFL and we have USFL, which is going to be very exciting. But do you have anything to add for this week's XFL, Smokey?
No, I think that's it for this week.
Okay, then everybody drop us a like on the video. Let us know your picks. And since it's going into the hot phase now, playoff brackets. Who's making the playoffs? Especially the North, to me, is very interesting. Because one of those 3 very strong teams is going to be the odd one out, kind of looking in. And then also in the South, who's gonna jump in? The Roughnecks, are they going to keep it up or are they going to be usurped? So let us know what you think. Let us know your picks. And we're going to see you in the next one.
Deuces.
Check the scoreboard. Ha. Check.